Thank you for being willing to help me with this. Where do people start?
I guess the lead-in that you gave is you got to realize that as a financial planner, I'm not a miracle worker, and the bottom line is that you can only live so long with outflows being in excess of inflows. You can only live so long spending more than what you earn. But to start, you do have to have a plan. And the plan that you talked about was a great start. It was looking back and trying to figure out where your money's going, where it's coming from. That's a great start. But I think we also have to focus on looking forward. And I run a financial planning seminar. And at the beginning of the seminar, I asked people to raise their hands and show how many people actually have goals in life. And of course, everyone's hand goes up. Then I take it one step further and say, okay, of the people who have goals, how many of you have actually written them down? And this doesn't have to be financial goals, any kind of goals. And about a third of the hands remain in the air. So some people have actually taken the steps to write down their goals. But then I asked, of the people who have goals written down, how many keep them in their pocket or in their wallet or on a mirror, where it's constantly reminding them of what they're striving for? And usually only one or two hands remain in the air. And it illustrates that although we want to accomplish stuff in life, very few of us take the steps to put a plan in place. And then I go ahead and I tell a story about Jim Carrey. And I don't know if any of you have heard this story before, but Jim Carrey, as a struggling comedian, grew up just outside Toronto, came from a very sort of poor family given Western standards. His father used to drive him all over Ontario in their old beat-up car, and he would do his act in front of these small little crowds. But when he was first starting out, he wrote himself a check for $10 million, and he had the note on there, for acting services rendered. He wrote it to himself, and he put a date on it. And he put it in his wallet, and every time he would go on stage, just before, as they were doing the introduction for him, he would pull it out, and it would remind him of the plans that he had put in place. And I can imagine that Jim Carrey, as a struggling comedian, going out to some hick town in Ontario, doing a show in front of a small little crowd, he'd probably get pretty discouraged. But then when he pulled out that reminder, that plan, it would give him the motivation to carry on. So certainly a plan is very important. And getting through those rough times, that's what a plan can do for you.
So what does a plan look like then?
Well, basically I think it's just a roadmap. You talked about where we are today, which I would put point A. And we look at your cash flow situation, your net worth, which is just basically all you own minus everything you owe. It gives us a good starting point. But if we only look at where we are today, we don't have that forward-looking idea and where we want to go in the future. It's like you're driving around an unfamiliar city. You know you want to get somewhere to spend the day at some attraction or something like that, but you don't know where you're going. And you might get there if you're lucky, or you might get somewhere else that is okay too. But chances are, most often, you're going to end up in the bad part of town, or a part of town that you don't want to be in. And the same thing happens with people's money. And so we talk a lot about people's goals, what they want to accomplish, and often this involves setting priorities. It'd be nice if you could do everything you wanted to do today, spend as much as you want, eat out, have the nice car, have the nice home, save for your kids' education, have enough in your retirement fund to be able to retire early with lots of cash. But for most people, that's just not a reality. You got to set some priorities, figure out what's most important to you, figure out what you want to accomplish first, and what you can maybe put aside as a nice to have if it works out that way.
Okay. My dad tells a story, our dad tells a story about an argument that he heard between his parents about money. My grandmother, God bless her, loved to spend. And she always looked for good deals. She always bought when things were on sale. And so one day she came home with something or other, I don't know what it was. And my grandfather was exasperated because she'd spent more money, and she said, "But it was on sale, look how much I saved." And my grandfather said, "I can't afford to save any more money." What do people do if spending is a problem? Are there any strategies that we can take?
Yeah, I think there's no magic answer to spending. I think if people struggle with spending, it's largely due to impulse buying. And that gets people into a lot of problems. So I do have some ideas that I put together this past week to how to combat the problem of impulse buying. The first and some of these may work, some of them may not work, but choose one that works for you if you struggle with impulse buying. First would be to have like a discretionary spending amount that you're able to spend on your own without consulting the other members of your family or your spouse or your partner. So if you choose that between yourselves. So if it's $100 that you can spend, or $50 or $10, whatever that amount is that you can just spend on your own without having to consult people. And that way, if you do want something that is in excess of that amount, it makes you take a step back and talk it over, and you can figure out whether it's something your household really needs. So have a discretionary spending amount. That would be one way that you could combat impulse buying. The other would be to sort of like the envelope system that you were talking about, give yourselves an allowance, like you would your children. And you can choose how to spend that however you want. If it's $10 a week that you get to spend, you can either put that aside and save up for something that is larger than that you want in the future, or you can spend $10 going out to lunch once a day every week. So that is, again, a specific amount that you can spend sort of impulsively, but it's limited. The third way, I think this is a great way, is to use gift cards. And you can pick up gift cards here at the church. It supports the church, but it also, if you commit to using gift cards, especially for those impulse buys, and you're in a store and you think, wow, look at that neat little gizmo, I should buy that, but I'm going to use a gift card, then it takes a week or so before you actually get the gift card in your hands. So it gives you a chance, again, to think it over. Is that gizmo something that I really need, or is it just something that I want? And that's the biggest problem, I think, with impulse buying, is it's usually driven by wants and not needs. So if we can pull ourselves back from that, then that helps. And then the last thing, which I think is probably the most important, is don't be afraid to say no. And when you're out with children or whoever it is and they want something, it's okay to say no to children, but it's also okay to say no to that little voice in your head that says, oh, you'll only be happy if you can get that. That's a lie. The happiness is only short term, the bill is long term, but that voice in your head that says you'll be happy, say no to it. And say no to society. Society pressures us to spend around the holidays, spend for birthday gifts, made up holidays like Valentine's Day next week. You don't have to spend money on those things. Society is telling you you have to. So if you struggle with that, don't feel bad. It's just society pressuring you.
So instead of going out for dinner, get your wife and kids out of the house for a little while and make a wonderful dinner and have them all back in again. Sure. It saves a lot of money. Okay. The Money Sense article that I was talking about earlier this morning said something along this lines. For every dollar that Canadians earn, we owe $1.27. How can we possibly cope with that kind of debt?
Debt is a big problem in society. Debt has really caused the economic slowdown that we're in. People that were overextended, people that borrowed against their homes, and then the housing prices dropped, and debt really got us into this situation. So debt is a major issue that people struggle with. I think the best thing to do is try to separate debt from good debt into bad debt. And good debt I would describe as anything that's going to provide you value into the future. If you need a mortgage to buy a home, that's going to increase in value. Or if you want to go back to school and you need to take on some loans, but it will get you into a career that you enjoy and can help pay the bills in the future, and that's going to help you as well. Bad debt, again, goes back to the needs versus the want. And if you only want something, I would suggest waiting and saving for that money until you can afford it. Using bad debt to buy something that's short-term, it goes back to that little voice that's in your head. If it's short-term, you get the happiness for a short period of time, but the debt remains with you for the long term. Some of the worst programs that are out there are the don't pay till 2010 events, or the no interest for 6 months kind of deals. And I don't call them deals because so many times when I'm in the bank and I see people coming in, they're into the bank to consolidate this kind of debt or increase their line of credit so they can pay off those deals that they got. Because they intended to save the money, but they never did. And now the 6 months is up and they have to pay it back, and they have to pay back all the interest going back to the purchase date. So they come in to get a loan to pay off these debts, and where they intended to save it, if they had just saved it to begin with and then bought it, they'd be in a much better shape.
Because those deals, those don't pay for 6 months or no interest or anything, they're always going to be out there, right? So if we save the money ahead of time, we can still get the good deal. We just have to wait a little bit. Yeah.